state of North Dakota. Okay, it's 5:30. I would like to call to order the West Fargo Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for Tuesday, August 13th. Second item, or B, is the approval of order of the agenda. So we've got 3 items, one of them, I believe, the first one being withdrawn. Take a motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the order of the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Order is approved. Item C is the approval of the minutes from July 9th, 2024 meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes as published for the July 9th meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now we go into the regular agenda. First item, public hearing A24-20. And this is requested to be withdrawn. So do we even have to talk about it?
No, you don't.
Okay, let's move on then. Item number 2, public hearing A24-23, North Pond at the Preserve 18th Edition, a request for subdivision at 2400 Blue Stem Drive, Lot 1, Block 3, North Pond at the Preserve 9th Edition.
Oh, so sorry. There we go. Good evening, Commissioners. We're here to represent the North Pond at the Preserve 18th application for a major subdivision of a single platted lot into 7 individual parcels. The area in question is a C-like commercial zoning district. It is about 7.45 acres. To the north of the property, let me get to the map here. To the north of the property is also light commercial. Adjoining is single-family residential dwelling, which resides a church. There is C-like commercial in the corridor district overlaid to the east, and a commercial office park, including our city offices, right here to the west to help you locate. The site is served by 2 adjoining roads, Blue Stem Drive to the east and 26th Avenue East. There is a divided access center median on 26th Avenue. And through, okay. So the site is proposed to be served by a private drive. Let me make that a little bit smaller. And hopefully you can see it. So there's one large-sized parcel of the drive that has direct access on Blue Stem Road. There are 6 parcels within this. The private drive is served by a 45-foot wide access easement, which will have utilities through it. And this site is a little bit narrower at 40 feet. They have provided a site plan to show the illustration of how the site will ultimately develop into the office park. Parkland dedication has been fulfilled in other parcels. They are providing pedestrian connectivity, and on one side of the parcel is proposed in the site plan. And the applicant is here, should you need it, but staff is recommending approval, and we are here for questions, should you have any before, if you wish to have any.
Thank you. There's a public hearing. I'll open up public comment input at this time. Any comments or input from the public on this topic? Seeing none, close that section. Commissioners. Just one, we're not changing the zoning, right? It's just changing how many lots.
The zoning is approved as commercial, and it will be developed as such.
Okay, thank you. Questions, concerns, thoughts, input?
Is there going to be both ways you can turn in and out of here? Or you can be right in, right out? Or is there
There's two-way traffic entering on this part of the road to be named Alexander Way. And as I mentioned, there is a divided median in 26th. So the the westbound traffic will have full access, and they will have to exit out to the west and to find some other means of. So that'll be right in, right out there? Correct, at this time. And there's also a controlled access easement as well, which prohibits any other location for access or driveways to these other parcels.
So
don't think I said
controlled
that.
access on those dotted lines there?
That is correct.
Okay, so that means there's a curb.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
Move to approve.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the application. Any further discussion prior to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Item number 3, public hearing, A24-24, Nelson Acres 5th Edition, a request for a planned unit development amendment regarding an existing landscape business and a proposed event entertainment venue at 225 40th Avenue West, Lot 1, Block 1 of the Nelson Acres 5th Edition.
Good evening, Commissioners. Again, happy to present this to you. This is the amendment to a approved plan unit development for Shea West, which is currently owned by Greenworks Properties LLC. So the property was approved in a sort of a unique manner for a plan unit development. It was not cited at the time it was approved with a specific site development plan with particular structures and uses called out. It was approved in a manner that allowed a garden and nursery center under the C Light Commercial Zoning District to be the ruling standard for development. So there is a large amount of information in the packet, but let me try to summarize our intentions for this evening. So why we're here tonight. So we can amend through our ordinance approved planned unit developments. So how do we do this? We bring the changes to you because of changes in land use or intensity of development or use. That's why we're here today, because there have been some demonstration and documentation of the intensity of the uses and the property structures increasing. So the applicant is specifically requesting to allow a private banquet party venue on the subject property, allow gravel parking and vehicular circulation, and then allow illegal signage, which was of temporary nature but has remained past its expiration date to become permanent or temporary until it's permanent is installed. So to circle back a little bit in history, a very high level here, the PUD amendment and use alterations to the original site plan. This was the original site plan that accompanied the staff report for those of you who were here in 2020 and might have looked at this time. So the specifics of the site at this time were the change of a old residential dwelling and into a boutique garden and nursery center. There was a addition of a garage and became a workshop. I think that's how it revolved. So the site plan shows existing shelter belt trees, which were there at the time, to be amended. There's a shade structure for the adjoining nursery uses, plants, parking, and the former location of the entrance to the former farmhouse was shown to remain. In addition, there were some mass bulk storage area materials demonstrated here. Now, after this was approved, this is not where things end up at the city. So as it comes through the other ancillary approval processes, there became some additional amendments. So in cooperation with this. So this was a building permit plan that was submitted in March of 2022. So this shows a little bit more richer detail of what was approved at the time in structuring the other things. So there were, a few other caveats that I'm not going to go into detail here, but I will just say that based on this plan, more discussions were held and more evolutions occurred as the building permitting process.
Could you hold 1 second?
Sure.
When I'm looking at this drawing, I see a left turn off of 40th into their driveway. That does not exist.
So that is part of the evolution of this plan. So this was submitted, but the building inspections permitting process does not have purview to approve or deny any of the site features. So this evolved going into the engineering division for site permitting, and this level of constructability and detail was then discussed, approved to the following. So specific to this plan, I think this is a lot of the relevancy of where we're at. The previously existing driveway to the farmhouse was removed. Additional parking was added in these locations. The mini bins were relocated to this nature versus around the outside. There was a little bit more purposeful and documented plan with had some dimensional standards. And also the criteria for zoning standards was also submitted at this time to make sure that all was verified and approvable, not only through the engineering standards, but our building and our zoning. So this is where we're at. So if we back up one step back, I showed the comparison contrast. So this was the original 2020 PUD plan, and this was on the Shea West website and linked to Google Earth. So this generally shows the intensity and the replication of what the intentions were from the original approval that were evolved over time. So where we're at today is where we have the stark contrast of the approved PUD plan and what exists on site. And through this sort of contrast, and this is where we've required the needed amendment to a created new approval for a PUD. So if I can point out a few things, the access was approved at this time. It's proven a little problematic, but that's a different subject that we're going to sort of distance ourselves from in this presentation. The mini bin bulk storage materials sort of exploded a little bit more, and those have since been removed from this area, but still the gravel driveway and circulation are intact, mostly to serve the bulk storage. The staging area and the sales for the trees have expanded beyond where the shelter belts were, and in conjunction with that, the hoop houses, which arrived on site really early on as shade structure, they remained. They're a nursery greenhouse adjacent, and this also shows the footprint, a concrete footprint for a greenhouse that was moved on site. Now, this is the most recent aerial photo I could come up with. There is more that's provided in your packet that are the views from the more refined and developed site features in the very end. But in the long and as this has evolved, what also unfortunately occurred is zoning violations. So a letter was sent to our applicant stating these specific zoning criteria that were not met at the time. The use of the greenhouse building for private event rentals, the gravel surfaces, and the 2 illegal signs. And the illegal signs, I'll use this illustration, there are banner signs adhered to this part of the structure, which are by category and by definition temporary. And there's a use of an antique red truck that has signage in the back, and that visual is in your packet. And while it's certainly serving a purpose, it also crosses the line with allowable signage in our ordinance, being that it's attached to a moving vehicle and nothing that is allowed as it stands. So what we have approached are a few different measures to both support the expansions and amendments to the site, but also resolve some of the zoning violation issues. So the PUD amendment specifically requests that these very high-level view is to approve the use of the greenhouse building for private event rentals as a permitted use. And perhaps I neglected to say that. When the greenhouse was moved on site previously, it was for the purpose and permitted as part of the affiliated with the greenhouse business. As time has gone on, it has since transitioned to a rental venue space. So that is not cited specifically in the zoning ordinance under the light commercial use, but is standalone on its own, but can be related. So also in reference to the evolving nature of business in general, we proposed that the applicant consider submitting two plans. One that addresses the existing conditions and as it exists today to attempt to resolve the zoning violations and also aspirations of a thriving business, but also a phase plan. And I'll get to the second one in a little bit. So the specifics of the greenhouse use specifically is for you to understand that by the occupational load, by building and safety, 80 people can occupy that space. We have suggested a reduction, and the applicant has been agreeable to reducing that maximum person load to 50 people. We've tried to make provisions for limiting the rental space only to be allowed during off-peak retail time so that there isn't a overage and stress on the on-site parking, which has proven to be a little bit problematic. To limit the outside vendors to 3 and not to obstruct parking stalls. And the reason for that is it's been no secret that this has been a very popular site, and they have very popular events. Eventing in itself has been an additional component on site, and we have handled that in a different manner, so not as an approved use, but we'll get to that in a second. So, and we provided for you in the development agreement a provision for defining all parking and all uses on the site. Specific to the gravel driving surface, staff has felt that because the surrounding neighborhood is rural residential, there are adjoining gravel roads and gravel driveways in the adjoining residential use, that as a temporary measure, the gravel surface temporarily, while it's serving the bin storage and circulation, is allowable until which time the phase 2 plan is enacted, and that would be the time when there's a flashpoint when things would transition to a permanent parking surface and striping. The 2 illegal signs, both the temporary banner signs and the red pickup truck, we have said can remain temporarily, but they do have an expiration date. Yes, they have exceeded, but you know it is reasonable, we feel as staff, to allow them for a certain period of time until they are replaced by permanent. That can happen immediately, but no later than what we've established is September 1st, 2026. The 2 plans that are in your packet are these: the PUD Concept Plan Phase 1 and the PUD Concept Plan Phase 2. The highlights of these, the pace is small, so I'll just walk you through it in a clockwise manner. The access is to remain the same. There are some site features and parking, which is to remain the same. The truck is to remain as a display feature only in Phase 2, and as soon as can be accommodated in Phase 1, but so to be signage adjacent. The landscaping and the enrichment of the appearance standard along the northern and eastern sides are to remain adjacent to landscape business. The greenhouses and the rent rental are the same as the shade structure, the boutique and retail management area. The difference in this particular area, the 2 hoop houses are to remain in Phase 1. In Phase 2, they are proposed to be expanded on with a sizable greenhouse area encompassing where the hoop houses will be removed. However, the caveat there is the building permit would only be allowed once the bin and storage areas were to be removed from the site and additional parking incorporated to accommodate that increase in rental space. And I think that covers it.
Question.
Sure.
The second greenhouse, will that also be used for dual purpose of classrooms and private rentals?
We have not quantified parking. based on that use, it would be permitted as a greenhouse use by the Building Inspection Division. And so since we do not have plans or an application, right now it is labeled as greenhouse use. But it would be difficult to accommodate any additional on-site parking, for your information, with that increase of area on-site without removing other site features, I should say that.
And second question, is there timing associated with phase two? Did I miss that?
There is no timing associated with phase two. It's
Other than the expiration of the two
correct,
signs?
correct.
I have a question.
Yes.
The little red truck is kind of a universal symbol for gardening.
Mm-hmm,
Downtown Red River Market uses it,
mm-hmm.
and I thought it was a great addition over there because people, yeah, I'm in your neighborhood over on 40th, and I thought that was a great addition to let people know exactly what that is. And so is our complaint that we're putting a banner on that side of the red pickup?
So, partially. If you remember, a couple of months ago, the commission came and asked us to amend the signage ordinance to prohibit signage on a moving vehicle because we were having trouble with large semis being parked with signage. This, by its nuance, being a vehicle with wheels and a motor, sort of fits under that umbrella. So we aren't suggesting that they remove the truck from the site. We're suggesting that they accommodate signage in a different manner. It's conventional, and that the truck simply be used as display or signage adjacent.
You know, when I voted on that, I visualized a semi that had a big banner on it. I didn't visualize a little red truck.
Right.
And I just find a little red truck totally acceptable for that line of business. You know, you go into Target or any of these places, any craft stores, little red trucks are sold as decor to visualize like gardening or anything like that. This just sounds really heavy-handed to me.
So that is perfectly understandable, and you know, you are, as a commissioner, you have the ability to make that case, and but we'll get to that at the end, okay? Anything else before I move on?
Not right now.
Okay. So the event, in addition to the zoning violations, where we have understood that there is stress on the site is from the additional outside markets that have occurred, which have created what we would call spillover parking into adjoining neighborhoods. So our methodology and our purpose for amending the PUD is to only limit to those things that we can do through our zoning ordinance. However, the city has additional, let's call it safeguards and supports in place to accommodate community events, such as the events like markets and fairs and such. So we are requiring that should there be any additional outside activities, vendors, markets, what have you, the real approval process to go through to have those on site would be through a city special event permitting process. And that is a different level of application. It has a different level of scrutiny. It involves oversight by multiple city departments, and there are other related things to that, such as allowing noise amplification and alcohol consumption. So it's all integral, but we have removed that as a use from this amendment. So, and this
Can
PUD
you
approval.
repeat that? What do you mean remove that as a use?
So
Is it
eventing-
currently
so-
allowed?
It wasn't allowed previously, but we haven't, when you have a PUD, you can tailor it to your needs. So instead of adding it, which is almost impossible to quantify as far for parking calculations, under a PUD amendment, it's a separate approval process. So
What does that approval process for special events entail?
I'm not an expert at that, So I'm not going to be the best person to answer that, and they probably aren't here, but
Probably smarter than me.
it is currently overseen by the police department. So there's an online application, and when you go to the website, the city website, and there is a lot of criteria that you need to answer and address. You must provide a site plan, you must provide insurance, and answer a lot of questions. So just to add a little bit more protection for, the neighborhood and citizens who are not only in the surrounding area, but those who wish to attend. Does that answer your question?
Kind of.
Okay.
And that's a standard process that everybody follows, special events.
So for example, West Fargo Events uses it for downtown, for for the events on Cheyenne, anything that's down there, West Fest, it can be scalable. There's a certain threshold where things would be needed and not needed, but the experts are another division who oversees that with, in the police department, because it'll also relate to traffic, oversight, signage, if there's food, public health, and that is certainly beyond planning and zoning's purview to review. The other permits listed would be, of course, that the PUD amendment does not exclude is any additional building like the greenhouse that you mentioned, that would go under review by our building inspections department. And the signage, any additions to signage would go through our department under a signage permit as needed. So there's,
Do food trucks have their own liability insurance and comply with health?
that is not a question for me, I'm afraid. So that is something I would not be able to accommodate you.
But food trucks would be one of the things that's considered part of the events?
It could be.
Okay.
So one other little caveat in the details of Exhibit A is that if there is an allowance for 3 outside vendors to come to the site. However, they cannot impede the parking. So could a food truck come on site? Potentially, but it
And
cannot park in a
3 was
stall that
picked
someone else.
because of the size or because of past experience or what?
Say that again?
3, the number 3, was that selected for a specific reason?
It was somewhat arbitrary.
Okay.
And to be reasonable. And some of that is based on the parking quantification. If you look in the Exhibit A of the attachment to the development agreement in your packet, we also approved parking and quantified it based on the 2020 standards. So it does show that,
Could you scroll to that on the screen,
Sure.
please?
I won't get there quickly, but I'll get there.
Apologize, I don't have my package
Nope, perfectly
printed
fine.
out.
No, it's a good point. So the parking calculation quantifies the uses that we're proposing to be approved in the manner that they were approved in 2020. So greenhouse and nursery uses, 10 employees on the largest shift, 10 parking spaces. The inside sales and display area gross square footage, which include the boutique retail and the workshop retail building for phase 1 equals this amount of square footage. You divide it by 500, that equates to this many parking stalls. Then the addition of the banquet and party event rental venue is limited to 50 people maximum on site. The calculation at that time from 2020 is 1 space per 5 people, which quantifies it to 10 spaces. So overall, 31 parking spaces minimum would be required on site.
And how many will they have in the phase 1?
I believe 39. But I'm gonna have to look now.
Okay, and it was 49 for phase 2, I think, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So 40 in phase 2, 41. So based on the appearance of the plan, there be additional parking somewhere else off to the side, something for a food truck or possibly. But again, with the event permitting beyond that, that's when a site plan showing how there is to be safe circulation and additional
many-
people to the site accommodated.
How many defined spots are there now?
That I'm gonna leave up to the applicant to answer.
Is that an answer you guys have?
It's very similar to what's in phase 1, that's showing.
So you have about 30 right now?
How about we wait until she comes up and then you can ask
Sorry.
so she can get up here. So,
Sorry about that.
that's all right.
I'm being bad.
It's okay. We just want to have everything recorded for the public record. So at the end of the day, staff is recommending some additional we're recommending approval for, as outlined, for the PUD development agreement and subject to the conditions. A signed PUD agreement is received prior to approval, and PUD site plans are updated to remove the reference to modification of the median of 40th Avenue. And the reason for that is there is currently an open application, if you recall, from several months ago, where we had gone through some other scenarios where access is approved. That application is still open, but because of the zoning violations, has been somewhat set aside until the zoning violations are resolved, and one of the measures of resolving that is to approve this plan. And then that other application would be revisited.
And that's for the left turn.
There were 3 solutions that you recommended and that were presented to the commission.
We did?
That was the third.
I don't recall that. Was I missing?
Yes.
So, as recent as today, we met with the applicant. And the portion of the development agreement and I'll let her speak, that is not in agreement would be the language that we incorporated in the development agreement, which was this: the use of the permitted, specific to the private banquet, party, and event venue with following conditions. And it states the use is permitted during the months of July through April. No private event shall be allowed in the months of May and June unless the event is held during the hours the Nursery and Garden Center is not open to the public and no other events are being held. What this speaks to is a response to the Mother's Day weekend event where there was eventing, as we understand it, and stress on the business because of peak sales hours in the garden center. And I'm sure Ms. Callis will tell you more about the business aspect of it. They are thinking that it's too restrictive and too broad and encompassing. So that is why I put this suggestion that allows the staff the parameters to seek to amend that language. But if there are other language or if you have other ideas, we're certainly welcome to entertain. Yes?
What triggers us transitioning from phase 1 to phase 2?
The removal of the mini bins would create the opportunity for the greenhouse building permit to be pulled. The greenhouse building permit could not be pulled until the parking lot is paved and striped.
Okay. I have some more questions on that, but I'll maybe hold them to later.
We do have quite a few individuals, both supporting and I believe not in support. So I would just suggest I can come back and answer questions after the presentations are made, but I think it's best if you wish to hear from the applicant, I will
Well,
leave it
maybe
there.
I'll ask my other question now if that's, can I do that, Chair?
Yes, you may.
So the last bullet point on the screen here refers to the access issues into the site.
Mhm.
Has staff given thought to tying phase 2 in with this access issue?
We would prefer that they be 2 separate actions, mostly because the first application that was specific to access might have other alternatives that we haven't addressed here, and it's off this property. So there's only so much that we feel we can have in this.
Yeah, I guess I understand why you're trying to separate them, but at the same time, the access issues exist today. And I'm a little uncomfortable approving an amendment to the PUD with additional expanded uses of a property that already has access issues
Mhm.
that affect the neighborhood, and so I guess that's where I was thinking if
And I
phase
also,
2 could be held in abeyance until the access issues were resolved.
and I should also point out that second condition really speaks to this. I don't know if you can see it, I probably need to zoom in a little bit more. But this application states that the modified medium partially removed for semi-access. We don't want there to be a misinterpretation of this to be an approved plan that would approve something that has already been explored and a different application. So we would respectfully request that the approved plan remove that particular verbiage and let the other application reach its logical conclusion.
Got it.
All right, thank you.
This is a public hearing. As such, I will open it up to public input, comment on this topic. Those of you that wish to speak, please come up, identify yourself. We'll listen in. Any comments? Yes, ma'am. Nobody else is jumping in front of you, so.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. I know we have much better things we love to do, enjoy outside. My name is Mandy Sterlickson. I happen to be a resident of Nelson Acres. My conversation and what my talking points tonight are going to actually change from what I had planned. I'm going to say this on a personal note. I'm actually very uncomfortable being here. We have been attacked, and I just want to caution you, it isn't that we oppose things. We want to be residents in this community just like everyone else. And so we want to voice our concerns, and it doesn't mean we're opposed to the business, which is what has been misconstrued and communicated. That's not what our goal is. This business has been, as it has been expressed to you too, Jody, in public settings. We do not oppose your business. Our concern is that your business has impacted our homes, our livelihood, our ability to access our properties. And so while I get attacked by you in social media and your husband physically attacks us on the road and we have to call the police.
Excuse me, ma'am.
I say this, I'm just saying this, I want to express it, but I'm also telling you I'm very scared of this.
Yeah,
And so-
and I can,
Okay, I'll stop saying that, okay. I'll get to my point, but it'll be short.
please just address us
Okay,
at this time.
okay, thank you.
And I'm not familiar with what you're referring to, good or bad, but
That's okay. So I just ask that the harassing stop, but what I want to say is that the concerns that we're expressing, again, have nothing to do with the business. I am a small business owner as well. I understand that I come from a family of small business owners. We're here to promote each other. I think that's what's great. But as with any other business owner, there are certain exceptions and expenses that come into play that we have to accommodate. What has happened as a result of this, because of the wonderful expansion that her business has done, just to put it in light, we referenced the Mother's Day event, which happens to just be one of many. It has been going on for the last 2+ years. And so we as residents get to experience the inability to get to our homes. While I appreciate the discussion about limiting the event center, I don't know that the event center is the main culprit. There's a lot of different factors that come into play to it. So when we talk about just addressing that limiting from 80 to 50, when we talk about doing it during certain hours, the adjacent properties that come into that, one, my home and the way we access our home is a 24/7, okay? But there's a recycling center that's right there. And a couple of things just based off, yes?
so you access your home on the gravel road that's
Correct.
next to the recycling center that
Forest
people
Street.
access that?
Correct, that's called Forest Street. There's only really 2 ways into our property, that, or into our development, that's one of them.
Okay, that's just west of this
Correct, correct.
property, okay?
So it goes Shy West, the recycling, and then 4th Street,
Okay,
okay? And the means of accessing that recycling center is on 4th Street.
yes.
So you go 4th and you have the choice of going into the recycling or straight down the gravel road to our residence, okay? The concern has been with the amount of people that are attending. If it's during off hours, you still have, that's the same time people are mowing their lawn and bringing their grass clippings to the recycling center. That means that if we say during the May and June window, which is when we're all getting out and doing our yard work, if we're saying to try to minimize the impact of traffic, we're going to limit the event center to those same hours. We've just kind of moved that problem because you're still gonna have people that are trying to access that building, to access that event center. So they're either going to come into that development or into this area, do turnarounds before they get to the actual recycling area. So they use that little bit of street to do a turnaround. They go into the recycling area to turn around, or there's people that just really are trying to recycle. So we're causing that confusion right in that area. That's where the road and the entrance to it is unfortunately a part of this factor, because while you limit the amount of people at what time, you're not limiting the people that are still coming. And so I would just say that when you're talking about trying to limit it, keep in mind that the hours you're saying are acceptable are the same hours that most people will be using that for recycling and the purposes of the recycling center.
And your concern is related to your street being blocked? You said you didn't have
Yep.
access?
Yep, so it'll be multifold, so, and I'm sorry, I'm just very nervous. So if we talk about trying to get onto the property, trying to get onto our road, I should say, let me say it right, trying to get onto our road, due to the inability to access from the,
Get a map
oh,
for
okay,
you.
thank you. Are my hand motions getting confusing?
No, they're all good.
It's because most people are coming from the east to the west, thus they need to take a left-hand turn, and that can't be done in the current setting. So what happens is people will go to the first available left turn, which is intended to get to the recycling center. Thank you.
I think you can point to here.
Can you, is this zooming in? Oh, is this one gonna zoom in?
And that's about as much as it's gonna
Okay.
get. It's stagnant.
Okay, so what happens is people can't turn in right here, which we understand why, because of the median. What they do is they come here, and then they will either do a UE right in this middle section of the road, and then go and turn back in, or they will come down here, go into this recycling area, and two things are happening. They will either try to come in and turn around, or most of them do this like a 90-degree turn. So pull in, back up, and go forward. Again, this has nothing to do with the business. This is people's behavior. But it is what's causing it. And so what happens is if you notice, this is kind of a big road, and if you've traveled on it, it's wide enough. So what happens is you'll get cars that are coming. Some of us are going to our homes. Some of them are going to the business. And you'll get this pileup of cars because we're expecting that we can turn to go south. And all of a sudden, you'll get a car that decides to do this UE turn, or decides to get right here and try to turn, and it blocks traffic. And on more than one occasion, I have personally been blocked with my butt on this road of 40th, because I can't get down my road while people are doing the to get in. So when I talk about it, that's the first concern. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay,
Oh, okay.
understood.
The next thing is just based off of number of people that were there. We're talking about Mother's Day, there were over 60 cars, which again, it speaks to the business, 60 cars that lined this whole 40th right here, all the way down. And we are thankful that the city did put no parking signs on there, because as you notice, this is a gravel road. There are no shoulders, there's no curbs, there's no sidewalks. These roads and these gravel roads are things that we as residents have to pay for our gravel. I have specials just like everybody else does, but I still pay for my gravel every 2 years. We also pay for all the calcium that goes onto it, so that's all residential, our homes pay for that. So what happens is when the cars start lining this driveway, lining this road, what ends up happening is our sides are getting squished out. It causes problems with rain, with all the road damage that's happening. And I do have pictures, I don't know if anybody cares. But there's damages that's happening to the roads. There's also a public safety concern, because you are going past right here, and like I said, when people are using the recycling, it's families are trying to get to the business, so you have strollers, 2 to 3 wide strollers, going down the middle of a gravel road that has cars lined on one side, and yet 2 sets of cars are supposed to be coming, either coming to try to find a parking spot, trying to get to their home. It became at this point, there was no place for cars to physically go down. And on this road, on 4th, just to give you perspective, this 4th Street, we all have larger lots out there. There's only 6 homes on that entire almost 2-block window, okay? Of those 6 homes, 3 of them, until May, 3 of them have people on life support in those properties. That means, I will speak to me personally, I had my father on home health care with hospice. He was on health care. There is no way, because we actually had called, there is no way for an ambulance or a fire truck to have gotten down that road to get to us. Now, my father has passed, but the two other residents that are there, one is a young child who is on life support at the age of 7, and the other one is an older person. But those are impacts that need to be considered as well. So when we talk about parking, that is one of the concerns. I'll just kind of make it quick then. The questions I would have is when we talk about limiting 3 vendors, if that's proposed, is there a discussion of the types? And I say that because there's music and festivals, things that are going on. Is a music vendor, is that considered a vendor? Is that acceptable? Does that fall under special use? I don't know, I'm just asking those questions. So if we say that you're limiting it to 3 vendors, does it matter the type of vendor? The one thing I would also remind us is in the special use permit, I understand there is no public input. Does that sound right? I think it's determined in-house. Okay, so for that state, moving that away from any sort of public input by those that might be impacted, that piece is taken out. I do want it to note, we're talking about, if this is a boutique, there's talking about semis coming into the property. Those semis, again, I think we'll all agree, those semis, this is a very condensed area. It is residential around it. There's parking, there's bike paths and things, so semis need to be discussed. And the other thing I think I would just say is, when we talk about limiting that 50 to 80, it isn't talking about limiting people on the property. And so, again, she hosts a lot of fun events. I am an active participant with kids in the community network and nationally. So I promote and celebrate children functions, but it also means that we have to talk about the safety of all of those. And when we are talking about limiting just one, these are family events that people are bringing their kids to, so it isn't just 80 adults walking in. The last thing I would say is, one of the challenges that we got into this situation has been because the PUD was planned in 2020, or it was approved in 2020, it morphed and changed and had things added to it. So it sounds like at this point we're looking at trying to update the PUD so it reflects to what the current state is. I would just ask that at a certain point, that if things are moving along, that they go through that ask process versus ask for forgiveness afterwards, which I think it just feels this whole process has been, I'm gonna move forward with an idea, good or bad, but I'm gonna move forward with the idea, and then I'm gonna hope that it works out. And if not, it becomes the impact of those around us that have to try to voice it. So I just ask that we try to follow those rules that the city has put ahead, which is ask and then approve versus do and then hope to ask for approval. So
Thank you.
that's it. I just wanted to answer your question as far as food trucks. I can speak to peacefully that. Food trucks are not required to have unique insurance. The only time that it is required to have unique insurance, other than vehicle insurance, is you have to be licensed through the city, which is something that most people are, because they can be inspected. But I will tell you that it is only at the request of the host whether the insurance is required for a rider.
Thank you.
Just for that, just since I knew the answer. Thank you.
Any other input? Please.
Hello, my name is Dylan Walton. I am also a resident of Nelson Acres. I am actually located right here. I'm the first one on the south side of that retention pond area. So, couple things I guess I just wanted to bring up were I kind of look at this situation as sort of like think about like a cruise night, right? It's a temporary inconvenience on some of these events that are hosted. Where parking situations, things like that are impacted on downtown West Fargo. It's just stuff that, residents kind of get used to, I guess. To Mandy's point about accessibility and stuff, that is, of course, safety and stuff, priority number one, always. I guess for me, on my side of things, I'm more in acceptance of, we have no parking signs now on the west side. And so where people are parking are just on that east side, which is city land. And then, on a rare occurrence, it'll creep over onto my property. But I guess, like I say, I look at it almost like a cruise night situation where some of those residents are inconvenienced accessing their houses and stuff, and you work around it. But overall, what Chi West has done and is doing for the community is really good, positive, constructive things. They're doing a lot of different things for kids, and the kind of crowds that you're getting, people there for plants and stuff like that. It's all positive community building stuff. So I wasn't quite so prepared on speaking today, but yeah, that's kind of just my 2 cents on everything, I guess. So
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Any other input?
Hello,
Hi there.
I am Adam Seifried. I live in the Hidden Acres area, just a little bit right over here. And like I was gonna say, I'm a big fan of Shy West. I bought multiple trees from them. They have quality, not quantity. Every year we go to around Mother's Day to pick up flowers. We find it as a walking event. It's a lot of fun. A lot of the problems is just there's no way to get in there, so I understand why cars are doing it, but if that should somehow get addressed by you guys, I don't know when, but it's a fantastic area. They have fantastic products, and yeah, we absolutely love them. We go there every year. So.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jody Callis, and I own said problem property. I'm going to say that cheekily. I appreciate everyone in the audience being here, even the people giving us criticism. I'm extremely disappointed to hear some of the really negative things being said about us personally, because I feel that having 80 employees and multiple businesses in West Fargo, based in West Fargo, speaks to the type of people that we are, and hopefully we can transcend that conversation. Some of the attacks, I guess I'd like to see that, because I'm not aware of any instances of actually attacking anyone on social media or ever. Most of the things that we've had to deal with have been reactive, and I wish I could speak to some of the incidents that I'm sure would get brought up, but I wasn't personally involved. In the community, we've tried to bring something here that really matters, and we've tried really working with the city multiple times to not do things in arrears. In fact, I feel obligated to tell you that we've pulled lots of different permits over the years, and a lot of things have been a learning curve for the city as well. Some of the people in this room haven't even been involved in the conversation as long as we've been present on the site, and I feel that that does a little bit of disservice to get us a solution. I have emails dating back till 2021, 2020, when we opened, about events on the site incorporating things from Park District has come to us and said, please host this, can we do this on your property? And we've always embraced those conversations, and until very recently didn't understand that the city of West Fargo is not the same as the Park District. So here I am accommodating one large body of people that is begging me to host these events, meanwhile eroding slightly the conversations that have happened, because yes, occasionally, but I would like to quantify occasionally, probably less than 10 times a year that we actually have had traffic on that road, more than 10 vehicles. We're not talking about egregious blocking of property. We have Mother's Day sales weekend. I've tried to elaborate a little bit for some of the sales. We do about $1 million in sales a year. It exploded unexpectedly on me, and it was beyond all projections, but that speaks to the need of the amenity in the city. And we've tried to handle that as gracefully as we could. We had to make some site changes, but we've done so trying to abide by our original PUD. I apologize, Leslie, but I need to correct the record slightly. You might be able to track this better than me, but I truthfully believe that the initial that she gave you side-by-sides of what was approved is false. The very first approved drawing that you listed was actually what we presented for our light commercial permit, which was denied because Mandy's husband stood up in front of the commission in February of 2020 and said, don't let us lose control of this parcel. And I can call him out directly because he was the last speaker of the night. There was 3 gentlemen that got up and talked, and they said good and bad things about the parcel. And all the way back as far as our existence in 2020, before we even came to the site, The Sturlogsons have been very vocal about not wanting us there. We have tried to be graceful. We have tried to have stewardship and not be a menace to the area. We have neighbors that really care about what we do there. We have neighbors that there's been some challenges and we've worked with. There's a neighbor that's not in the audience tonight, but some of our lights in the back were causing some frustration for him when they got installed. He reached out to the building inspections department, and we paid for an electrician to come back 3 different times to adjust the lights to make sure that we were not causing an issue for a neighbor, because that's very important and near and dear to my heart. I do not want to cause a lot of problems. There are 2 other entrances into Nelson Acres. For those of you that are wanting, I don't know if I can scroll. I don't know if it's on this site portal, but further on the west side, there are 2 other entrances into that neighborhood, so it isn't like the only entrance into the entire neighborhood. It's just a little bit more convenient to burn out of 4th Street and keep on going down 40th or hit Cheyenne and go. When we have events, we have tried to work with whoever was bringing those to our attention, and initially it was the city, not City of West Fargo departments, it was West Fargo Park District saying, hey, we host a pumpkin party. Absolutely, we sell pumpkins, we would love to have 300 children here. Where do you want them to park? Oh, I'm not sure. We asked the Park District repeatedly over the years to please talk to the Public Works Department, because they own the property bordering us. We always push that conversation back on. We offered to host the event because they came to us and said, you get your own approvals and we will allow whatever you think you can bring here as an amenity, and it's a temporary 2-hour deal. The events that we've hosted evolved over time, but we've had, like I said, conversations back as far as 2020 on the record with the old planning director, emailing and saying, hey, Tim, this is what we're going to be doing. West Fargo Park District came up to us and wants us to host this market. Do you think that can be okay? Absolutely, that sounds like a great accessory use. So a lot of the conversations that we are having, we are getting permission for, but the processes have changed. When we first came to get our light commercial permit from the city of West Fargo was at the exact same time that West Fargo didn't have its own departments for anything. It was within probably less than 6 months of acquiring more engineering, and all of those city departments sort of ballooned up because the city was on the grow. And I was told directly by a couple of different people, Mark Hausch being one of them, he's worked with us and been fabulous. A lot of the city staff have been tremendous to support us, but there's a ton of frustration right now because we can't get past the permitting process, and there's a lot of red tape for things that we're trying to accomplish that we're getting approval for here and then denial for here. And what I mean by that is we went full steam ahead trying to get a light commercial permit for everything on February 4th of 2020, and we were denied. I lost everything with that transaction happening. One of the commissioners on the city commission came back and told me, listen, we're gonna speak to your financing people. We would like to see this proceed, but we want you to do a PUD because we just want a little bit more understanding of how the site's gonna be used. In case something happens in the future, we wanna be able to address that so that if you lose the parcel, and I didn't take offense to that. Mandy's husband decided to tell everyone that when I go belly up and a strip club comes to West Fargo, that's what it would be when we fail. Not if, but when we fail. So all the personal attacks go back that far, but I believe they're not coming from us. And what we're trying to do is bring something wonderful, and meeting criticism like that with a grain of salt, because I'm not gonna take it laying down. I would love to make it be something positive that we can move forward from. The Planning Commission is where it started a long time ago. We had the full support of Planning Commission to bring something beautiful here. And when we were denied that light commercial permit and we changed our PUD is where the other drawing came into play. We worked closely with Dustin Scott, who was at the time an engineer, the main engineer for the city, and we reformulated that whole site layout, and that was what got represented to get our PUD assigned to us. And you're right, the turning lane was on there, and it was our understanding that that got approved when we got our building permit in March of 2020. Little announced to me to come and pull a permit, and I spoke to Mark Hausch and I said, what permit would you like me to pull to do a turning lane? Because we need to modify that median that's out there in order to make this drawing that we already submitted and got approval for come to life. here, pull an excavation permit. I have communication via email to pull an excavation permit. And 2 weeks later, I wrote to him, we were trying to get concrete down, we were trying to meet our timelines because we wanted to open by May. And I said, I haven't heard anything on this permit, could you update me? Oh, shoot. I apologize, we're brand new here, we don't have a turn lane permit, was the feedback that I got. And I was told tonight not to muddy the waters talking about access, but damn it, that access is causing problems, and we didn't do that. The access is something that we thought we had approval for, and we went through all of the paperwork we were told to go through for. We opened a garden center and people loved it. People were driving over cones, not even open yet. We had women coming up, to just say, older women coming up and driving over the cones, moving them out of the way. Our construction crews were not even done pouring parking lot areas yet. Trying to shop there, and we were not ready in May of 2020. So we did our best to get what we could done, and then they allowed us to proceed, and we opened our business. But we requested from city forestry to move a couple of trees out of the way and create that punch across. In one of the very early drawings, we had an access to share the exit from the city recycling center, and we were supposed to punch through the trees, and we were never supposed to have an exit with a double driveway. And then the problems started because we were told, sorry, you can't remove city trees. Sorry, but here's us requesting all of these things. We never just did it and then asked for forgiveness. We reached out and then all of a sudden started being told, nope, sorry, oops, that was our fault, our bad. And that's where we've sat for, we tried to get open and we were having people trying to drive into the site, so we settled with Dustin Scott for a double driveway. Then eventually it became problematic because people were coming through the recycle center, and I brought it up multiple times. I said, someone is really gonna get hurt. You can go on every record, it's always been about safety, every conversation that we've brought up. And I wanted something to change, and I asked the mayor to come out directly to look at our site and to talk to him, and I've had multiple commissioners come out there. Some have pointed their fingers at me and told me it's my fault. Some have come and told me we'll try to do better, and we haven't really been able to come to a resolution. But most recently, we have tried to pull some sort of a permit to modify 40th, because if I had any say, we wouldn't be touching 4th Street. I never had any intentions of bothering that area of anything, and then Mandy wouldn't have any problems. Nobody would have an issue with us if we weren't pushing our traffic further into 4th Street to turn around. That was not how it was supposed to be, but we didn't pick that. So I would really like the conversation to be directed away from Shea West is causing these problems. We wanted to come up with a better solution, but because no city department has been able to recommend it yet, it's a challenging corner. It doesn't meet design standards. We need to transcend that and figure out how to get a commission to actually let us get approval to make a small modification outside of the design scope. That's the problem solution, but we haven't been able to find anyone to do that for us yet. And I've really appreciated working with the city staff, but they are at their limitations because they have a book that they're assigned and they can't deviate from that. So they're doing their best, but every time we get assigned to do something else, look at another design study, send us to 4th, the main commission denies us and says you are not using the land off of 4th Street to access your property. We didn't want to do that originally, but that is what the safest option is. And unfortunately, the city feels very heavily that allowing that access would cause problems in other parts of the city. So here we are, the only rock in between our property problems and several other developments in the area that we're apparently the one boat in the sea that's causing that to be not an exception. And I want to say that we are here to try to be solution-based, and we really are trying to promote safety for these events. I pay for extra staff to help facilitate cars coming in and out of the lot. Like, we've done everything that we can afford to do and try to accommodate and to the best of our ability. And some of these other problems, I feel greatly that they're being embellished. I feel greatly that we have been more of an asset than we have a detriment to any sort of community. It's been said that we're damaging the gravel roadway. There is so much traffic on that poor little 4th Street, and it is us. There are commercial people that live back there that run businesses out of their homes. There are the recycle center. Now that they've removed the exit, I need to go back to that. The exit got removed and we were taken out of the conversation. When I highlighted it as a safety concern, the city decided, oh, let's just pull out our exit. And Bernie Dardis came to me directly, and I will say that again. Bernie Dardis came to me and said, well, we did what you asked. I never asked for that exit to be removed out of the recycling center. The city had a big group meeting, and we were the only ones not invited. Every time there's been a solution that's come up, we're not invited to the table to actually have any participation in, and every time we are involved in the conversation, it's so limited that there's nothing we're able to do. So it's very frustrating to sit on this side of the bench and have people in the audience that come up and tell you that we're doing all these things without permission. No, if you had the list on my desk of what we've tried to do and what has been told that we're not allowed to do, it far exceeds what we've done that is outside of the scope of our PUD. Everything that we had done with the city initially, when we first got our PUD permit, there's a bunch of different notes listed in there that we've had discussions with the internal with the city, and we were told Garden Center was a vague way to get us all of what's on our site layout and everything we talked about as an accessory use because that sounded wonderful and they didn't want to limit our business. Now with changes in the city and it graduating and maturing, now we're being told, come back because we'd really like to outline these things. And I respect that. That's why I'm here. I'm not ignoring notices. I'm trying to get the PUD amended out of respect for the city so that we don't have as much gray area, but that's what the city told me to do initially. And that's why it's gray. That's why it seems like we've deviated, but really we've asked lots of different things. The Ivy Room that is in question right now, that's a big, huge event center, we pulled a permit for that. We were granted approval for that. Now that people have started coming to me and asking if they can have that as a private rental, what better use for the garden center because we're not busy all the time. Today I forwarded 60 documents, nearly 61 probably, May 1st through 31st and June 1st through June 30th of all of the different sales data of every transaction we had for our May and June this year and at what times of the day that those occurred to show the city this is when we're seeing peak traffic. It's mostly over the midday, but we have slow times in our season, and what we're trying to do is we installed that building so that we could host our Little Sprouts program. Is it busy every single hour of the day? No. And can we actually gain some revenues back from that? Yes. And what we're trying to do is pay the higher taxes and the higher costs of everything that we're dealing with through that little tiny building and the occasional $500 rental. It's been wildly popular, and we have bookings out through 2025 right now. A whole year in advance. That's how popular that little room has become. And we have in our booking agreement that I also provided the city that we try to encourage people to stay between 8 and 48 people. That's where the 50 number comes from, is something that we have already implemented within our own business to try to make sure, and what we're trying to do is manage that space so that during thin times, we're capitalizing on that because it's already here and we already have approval to use it for a classroom. Why can't somebody have a 3-year-old's birthday party there? That has happened. Why can't 10 mothers have a bridal shower in that space? Because that's already happened. Why can't somebody come there and use that building and then we kind of block off that little part of the garden center? And people love it. People have asked for it more, and now I'm trying to come before the Planning Commission today with passion and with honesty and just putting myself out there. Apparently, I attack people. Apparently, I have been egregious in all of my things, but I refute that with all my heart, that is not my character. I have gone tooth and nail in architecture college at NDSU for 5 years of a master's degree, and I didn't get there by being unprofessional. I have designed every part of every square inch of that space and all of the businesses that we do in this community. I think only one of the LLCs is not based in West Fargo. We're in double digits with how much we're investing in the number of LLCs that we have based here, and we would like our actual voices to be heard, and we would like to be taken seriously, because right now the city is at its limits with what it can allow us to do, and we have some customized things that we're trying to bring to the table. One of the things in the PUD is a butterfly house for our Little Sprouts program. One of the things is a school bus that we're hoping to bring there, but I'm finding out that there's a lot of violations with different kinds of structures and uses. We wanted to make it a library, and we're trying to pair it with the Ivy Room. There's a lot of fun custom ideas that we have, and do they fit the bill for the book? No. I think the book needs some revision, and I'm here to do it. And I really need your help, because I know that we can do it safely, and I know we can bring something that has art and class, is not a junkyard, and I am not here to bring some weed into the community. We're bringing flowers, and we're proud to be here. I brought a lot of my staff with me today. We slimmed up on our store, and we asked some of them that were not on the schedule to come in. And if you'd like to hear from any of them, but we're up to probably 30 to 35 people with our part-time staff included, and we have 4 satellite locations. Are we popular? I think so. Do I want to stay? Yes. Is it harder to stay than ever? Also, yes. So please tell me where I need to show up to advocate next, because I plan to be there. And please tell me what I need to do to be doing a little bit better job so that some of these things can move along. Right now, it's feeling like we're being attacked. Every permit that I've been pulling lately, we've got these violations that popped up, so now I'm not allowed to move forward on my U-turn request. We're trying to do a U-turn, and I have no idea why. People like Mandy are telling you that the U-turn is not an effective use of that space, and here we are gonna spend $500,000 to make a formal U-turn, and it's supposed to make things better, and it really scares the heck out of me. I don't think that that's the solution, and can I afford a $2 million roundabout? No, but I will try. I'll sell more flowers. If I have to go all the way out to Bismarck to sell flowers, I'll try. And all we wanted was to move back a little bit of that median and cut that out so that my trucks can safely move into the lot, the ones that were already permitted to have there. And we bought several $100,000 worth of property a mile down the road to get rid of those rock bins and make it safer so there aren't big trucks coming to the site. That's part of phase 2. We are absolutely spending money, and now I can't do anything because I'm in this strange conundrum where, since I have violations and we're slowly trying to move everything forward, the lots are causing everyone to say, well, they're in violation, we're not gonna help them, come back again in a month. And it's not, we're not moving the conversation forward, and somebody has to do that. Somebody has to be brave enough to step out there with me, and there are gonna be people in the community that don't like it, but we have to be brave enough to say, give them a chance, because they've proven themselves over and over again. My staff is top-notch, and I help them be that way. I ask them for excellence every single day, and they deliver. And I'm proud of them, and I want them to have a home and a space in this community. And if you don't, then we are gonna softly pick up and go somewhere else, because we were gonna keep trying.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anything else you have questions with me on the proposal?
Nope.
Be quiet and sit down.
I appreciate you coming up. Okay. Are there any individuals that wish to speak?
My name is Michael Close. I've been living in the Red River Valley most of my life. My wife and I, we moved away for a few years and came back to North Dakota last summer. I've known Jody for a little over a year. In order to finance part of a house, I needed a job, so I needed a letter of intent. And Jody was kind enough to give me a job, so now I'm a tax-paying citizen back in North Dakota. Jody and Brett are just an excellent family with 3 young, handsome boys, and they're very progressive. They want to contribute to this community, and they're just asking for a few things here. I know there's a lot of hoops to jump through and everything else, but I do hope you give them a chance, because this is just a small sample of what they're doing. They're helping a lot of people with jobs, to be taxpayers, and be able to support this community. And they have more than one business, so give them a chance.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kelsey Conroy. Oh, sorry. Gotta set alarms for everything. So I've been living in the area. I live pretty close to Liberty Middle School since 2016. I use that recycling area. I'm in the neighborhood. I've been to these events. I've seen what the traffic's like. And I mean, like Jody said, we can count on 2 hands the number of times in the year that we have events like that. I was there at the Mother's Day event as a customer, and it was busy, yes, and I also did recycling that day, but least when I went, and every time that I've been going to events or doing my recycling, I have never encountered it so busy that an emergency vehicle could not get through. Like, perhaps it's inconvenient, you have to wait for someone to turn around, but I've never experienced where like you absolutely cannot get through. So I'm just saying, again, I'm not there 24/7, so I couldn't tell you, but just as a resident who goes there regularly, it's rare that it's like that, or even close to the catastrophe that kind of sounded like it was being described as. I have also, I'm not one to really get super hyped up with politics or involved with the news and things like that. I find it stressful, and I can never know enough to really feel like I can make an informed decision. But with this issue, I feel like I can, because I live there, I work there. The reason why I started working there is because I lived in the area, and I thought, hey, this is a really cool place, I want to be a part of it. And I don't work there full time, I just work there a few times a week. So yes, I'm invested in this business, I love this business, but it's not my entire livelihood. Also, I used to be a biostatistician, and I really love that Jody has provided a space where people, having worked in an environment of big pharma and things like that, I wanted a different lifestyle that was a little bit more organic. Like, she's providing a space for employees as well as people to kind of get back to something a little bit more, I don't know, I can't think of the word, but maybe you know what I'm trying to say. But in order for the space to be here, I really do feel like, and I know this is the separate issue, but the accessibility has pitted us against neighbors, and it really shouldn't be that way, because I saw Jody's original plans. She did have approval originally. She went forward with this business model thinking she had this safe access. Like, that's the first given that needs to happen for a business, and she thought she had that. And I think that as a citizen, I would hope that my city and the people who represent me would follow ethical business practices. If you approve something, if you make an agreement, you should stick to it. If you cannot stick to it, you need to find a way, because I can't think of any business setting where you can make a deal and then just not do your part of it. You have to hold your end of the bargain, and I feel like the city did not hold their end of the bargain in providing a safe access, so now we're having all these other problems. Anyways, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, sir.
Darren Milbrath, a resident of Nelson Acres. Just want to stop up here and say hi and talk about a few other things. Jody, you're doing a great job. Mandy, you're working for us, and I understand it. I think it comes down to safety, and that's the biggest thing, is safety. You guys got handed a mess, I kind of think, with the entrance on that one. I don't know what the future plans are for 40th. You guys talked about a roundabout and a couple options, 3 options you guys gave them a couple weeks ago, maybe? Is that true?
It was a few months ago.
Okay, a few months ago, okay. Is there a way we can get a copy of that to see what that was?
That would be part of the public record of the meeting,
Okay.
and it was 2 months ago, the meeting?
Is that online? Is that online? Okay. A few things that popped in my mind, it is just safety, that's it, pretty much for me. There is traffic there. And in the morning, when you take off, you pull right out of 4th and you head towards the east. Cars from the west are coming so fast. Almost T-boned a person who'd come off of 40th and turned into Shy West before the median and come down the south side on the eastbound traffic. It's happened numerous times to me, and I I watch it, I know for it, I know it's happening. Same thing at the turning spot. So I suggest that if there's an option for a roundabout or like for 52nd Avenue in Fargo, could you go farther down Fourth and do a small roundabout down there by the park? Where they go off into the median?
I'm not
and do a
familiar
small
with the options that have been discussed. We have looked at several.
No problem. Are you familiar with 52nd on Fargo? How they do
Yes.
their turning lanes? Okay.
Hmm.
I just didn't know. I thought it might be an option for you guys to kind of work on a happy way
There
to.
were three options that were part of the recommendation that we passed a few months ago. That traffic study's been,
Done.
no, it's been
Oh.
suspended for now because of this PUD violation. So
Gotcha.
that may come back to the table if the PUD gets approved.
And I have no problem with the PUD being approved. I think it's a great thing for our community. I know Brett and Jody, they've done a great job there. My wife goes down there. I'm not a green thumb, but my wife is. Our kid goes down there, gets some ice cream once in a while. My question for the PUD though, would that have a time frame of that venue? Would that have a time frame of 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock for a wedding venue or anything like that? That's my question.
For special events.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would fall under the special event current process, is that.
So most special
like,
events,
Planning of a special event, you have to give a time frame, I would imagine.
is that limited to 10 o'clock at night or?
So there's two things, the way we're categorizing events. It's events that are considered to be a unique event that's on site, an outside vendor like a fair or market. But what we're referring to as having sort of ownership of in the PUD is what's happening in the private rental space on site.
Correct.
So, I don't have that specific information for you for how late they go. Jody has provided rental, the contracts within the packet, which we can forward to you, and maybe I can dig through it right now.
Fine. Talk
But
tomorrow too, doesn't matter to me.
if you wanna have that, if you wanna get up and answer that question about lateness, you're perfectly welcome.
But my question was just, what time frame? Is there a time frame on it?
So in the past, Darren, thank you for being here. In the past and what we've been doing now, because it was never intended to move forward without approval for that space, we were just trying to find off-peak uses for a building we have approval to have there. So it's a classroom space and we have 48 chairs that fit in a variety of different table setups. And the way that we market it, we try to encourage people to rent it for baby showers, bridal showers. There was one late night Christmas party that I'm aware of that did go till midnight, but we're very specific about ordinances and other things in the agreement. I have staff members on site and we make sure that we have full say about the music that they're playing inside that building. And we haven't had anything egregious that I'm aware of. As far as outside hours, I had that singular party that was allowed to be late at night, but other than that, it wasn't even a loud event, and I believe it was a Christmas party in January. So we're trying to accommodate people, but also keep them reasonable. So the booking agreement talks about being respectful of the space, and we have the override on that, and there's verbiage in there that my staff can ask them to leave at any time if they're not abiding by our store rules or the agreement. And we've been trying to be really conscious of that on who we're letting in and why and what types of parties. We've had a lot of pressure for different uses, and we've tried a couple of things and expanded outside of those bounds. Undoubtedly, someone will bring up that we've allowed a graduation party or a couple of them through there. I was talked into that by some of the people trying to rent the venue, that those were rolling events, but we monitored them really closely and we made sure that they were talking to the people visiting about the different types of traffic, and we tried to make sure that was more at off-peak times. And by far and away, I don't think that was also an event that caused a lot of problems. Like internally, we try to really make sure that we have reins on those groups of people and that they're really light duty events and mostly during the day.
Okay, thank you. As it stands right now, and please, Aaron or
Yep.
Leslie, correct me if I'm wrong, the PUD does not have any business hour restrictions
Okay.
as it stands. So
But events
it's
do.
no.
Okay.
The business activity of these events in the greenhouse would fall under this amendment, which would not, as we have laid it out, have time restrictions as it
Okay. So
as
if
it reads
till
right
2 in the
now.
Morning, a party could,
Pardon me?
a party could go till 2 in the morning and
Sure.
Yeah, so then they leave.
So I don't want you to go away with the impression that there are some
No, no.
time constraints. The proprietor has some framework in mind for what fits that business, but it is not a ordinance.
Yeah. Okay, I just want, kind of worried about, we have a lot of kids that walk on our road. Not my kids, I don't know where they come from, but we have a lot of kids that are on that road at night, 10, 11 o'clock at night, and it's hard to see them coming down the road.
Understood.
Oh, that's what I'm kind of worried about, somebody coming home from a party, sneaking the back way to miss the cops. We've all done it probably. And then, yeah, that's more of my concern.
Okay.
And then the thing with, if it does get approved for the PUD, is it allowed to, I don't know this answer, so I've got to ask you guys this. Is it allowed to end when they sell the property?
PUDs stay with the property. So the PUD has restrictions
Yep.
as far as what type of business is in there.
Okay.
If it is sold from one owner to another,
Okay.
that parameter stays with the property.
Okay. But you can't put restrictions on that.
That is a restriction. The PUD is a very limited definition of what can happen there, and that speaks to why it was not zoned commercial in general, because that has much broader definition, what is allowable.
Yep.
And the PUD is more restrictive.
And this,
So that was a concession made several years ago.
okay. No problem. That should be it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Input? Seeing none, I'm going to close that section. I feel we have had sufficient input from both sides, and I appreciate everybody's input. It is a somewhat challenging situation, and hope I'm not being out of turn, but this is not a problem of this business. This is a problem of the access is screwed up. And that creates congestion, and often by the customers trying to come there and finding no clear way to access the property. And having personally experienced that, I know and I was also wondering, why did this city close that one little loop to make it so you can get around safely? But different story. All right, we have an access problem, which is not going to get resolved unless there is clear, no violations by the landowner to the current planned unit development in that space. So we are in a conundrum in essence, unless we clarify and make it so that the operation is not in violation. So,
Just to sum up too, just to add, because of all of the testimony that's been presented to you this evening, and because there is a little bit of disconnect, and perhaps you want to expand on discussions between your co-commissioners about the content of some of the language that we're proposing in specifically the Exhibit A of the development agreement, you have some choices in front of you as how to proceed. Would be,
I apologize, I don't have the printed out of the recommendations beyond this. You have it,
well, they
oh yeah,
quite
here.
specifically allude to a 3-page document as an attachment. So unlike other more streamlined approval processes that you've gone to, this one is somewhat encumbered by a very deep understanding of exactly what the parameters are that you would be approving or amending. So it is up to you to work through some of the things that you might be disagreeing with, that I'm hearing a few of you say, or if you wish, you can move to continue this item so that we can further discuss and hash out, for lack of a better term, the specifics of the incremental things that are within A. And I believe that's, while it would be the preference, I don't think I'm speaking for you, for us to move forward, it's also what can sometimes happen if you amend things, let's just say on the fly, you might have unintended consequences for things that you're approving. So, what we had recommended is this caveat, unless someone has something specific that they'd like to change and change that recommendation, this little caveat, this language or something similar to it, which will allow you to predominantly approve the substance of the PUD amendment, and that those things in Exhibit A, but to also allow us to further refine some of the specific languages prior to it appearing before City Commission, which has been requested.
Just prior to this, there's 3 points that were made as far as what we were trying to amend. Could you go back? I think it's up another page,
This,
right? That,
I mean this.
there it is. An amendment which would allow officially allow the use of the greenhouse for private events and rentals. Second part of it is the approval of gravel driving surface in a for a near term, as well as the current signage to be allowed to remain up also for the near term as the facility is modified. So that's in essence the 3 things. That other, the other portion of it with the limitations of the seasonality, specifically to dates. I'm going to weigh in here on that and say I think that is restrictive and in some ways redundant. What we're just trying to do is kind of cap a little bit of the volume of people and then and do so, I would think, in a way which is not limiting the business to operate. So if we can strip that portion out, I would be up for discussing approval of this PUD amendment to achieve those 3 goals.
I think that's what they're kind of trying to say, right? Where you're talking about staff having more discussions, that would allow you to continue to work with the business owner.
And I'm saying just strip out the whole restriction part, and there's no more discussion. It's just a matter of, hey, it's being approved for use up to 50 people in events. We're not going to place any seasonality restrictions on it as far as, so that there's no overlap with the nursery business retail sales activities. That's the piece I'm pulling out, because then we're just opening ourselves up for another debate on the specifics of it.
That's the May, June restriction.
Yes, that's,
And I would just say, of course, we talked about separating out the access issue, and every single person stood up here and talked about access.
that's all it is.
That's all the feedback.
That is the issue.
So
So by,
how quickly can we get the access addressed if we move this forward? Like, I cringed when I heard the idea of continuing this, because that's not fair to the business owner, that's not fair to the neighbors, but the access is the problem.
and for clarification, the other accessing is being held right now as a result of violations? Or is that just
Somewhat. There is
the case?
there is a financial obligation. It is partially that. So it is, it has been,
So if we do not allow this, that will continue to be held and not addressed.
I would, there's nuances to that. So in essence, yes.
Well,
I didn't hear any objections to any of this. I just heard that access is a huge problem. I mean, that was my,
absolutely.
we need our streets to be safe for people to be able to get through. Emergency services obviously is critical, but if we're holding it because of this, I don't
It
agree.
seems we've reached a point where that road, it seems like it's inadequate.
Let's take a pause. I think we have some additional information from our planning director.
Yeah, can we provide a little more context for the access discussion? So as Leslie mentioned earlier, there is an alternative process, an alternative application process specific to questions on access. the property. And so, as you all know, that has gone, we did receive an application months ago that went in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission a few months back. And now we're at a point where it needs to go forward for some kind of engineering technical review work. Before the city moves forward with hiring an engineering firm to do that work, however, it does require some money be put down in escrow from the applicant in order to pay for that work. If that work does proceed and it ultimately results in a public improvement project, the cost of that design work can be kind of wrapped into the cost of that project and then special assessed accordingly. However, if it doesn't move forward, the city still needs to be reimbursed for that funding, and so that's what the purpose of that escrow is. And so my understanding from engineering, and I'll ask Assistant City Engineer Jerry Wallace to weigh in too if you have additional comments, but the applicant could provide that money in escrow and we could move forward with design work at any time. However, the city does have an ordinance on the books that says if an applicant is in violation of any ordinance, then the city should not be moving forward with any additional approvals or anything until that violation is
Okay,
correct.
so it's not going anywhere unless this gets cleaned up.
So it can move forward, but you may run into issues at City Commission for final approval.
I heard you can't move forward.
Ultimately, it's a City Commission decision.
Yeah. And city commission, lack of decision or acting on it is part of the problem here. And I'll say it, and I hope Bernie hears it.
So are you suggesting you're going to approve conditions and you're going to recommend striking specific sections? Is that what I'm hearing you say? Or are you amending
I'm
them?
a little bit confused on my,
Yes, you can.
can I make a motion? Yes. Thank you for that. Every once in a while, these, what is it, James rules or something like that? Robert's rules screw me up.
So, I'm not standing in the way of you making a motion, but before you do so, I guess I'm still going back to, my understanding is that with Phase 2, this property will be allowed to have another building and expanded use, which
And parking.
is an expanded parking, which again is fantastic, but I'm concerned that by approving that, we're exacerbating the exact issue that we're trying to pretend doesn't exist. And so I guess
What's
the access issue.
And that is a separate issue that has to be resolved after.
What I'm suggesting here is,
Path is
could
clear.
we separate this PUD and approve Phase 1, hold off on Phase 2 until the access issue gets resolved? It seems to me the city has been guilty of approving various things for this business, and if we continue down that path, we're only potentially making it worse.
And splitting it up into two phases and only approving the first phase makes that.
Phase 1 gets them out of the violation status, is that correct?
Yes.
Potentially. I mean, the concession, the nuances of the gravel parking surface is that we're allowing it to happen. When there is a parking surface, it is supposed to be, by ordinance, a durable surface. So by not having the backup plan of 2 present married into this approval process, there is it's another potential violation, if you get my drift, as it continues on.
And I appreciate what you guys are trying to do here. I know you guys can do more, and I appreciate what you guys are trying to do to fix this. But Shea West is gonna have a huge liability here with having to build this access issue. If we saddle them with having to pour concrete in all those places here, I mean, I'm really concerned that it's gonna be crazy money.
That's a huge investment when the access piece isn't resolved. Right.
And staff's saying that this is kind of a rural resident, and it is. And that's, I think that's a good way to handle this, that we can allow Phase 2 to hang there and let them get on their feet. The number one thing is to fix this freaking access. trying to do with getting rid of some of the language, so if we get rid of the language of restrictions on when they can do this, they're still restricted to 50 people only in there. I mean, for Mother's Day, I mean, I don't know, 50 people. I mean, I would suggest you don't hold anything during Mother's Day, because everybody's trying to get in there for flowers. But, and that's quite a restriction of keeping 50 in there. You're gonna have to hire a bouncer. But my suggestion is not have any events during Mother's Day. Let people come and get their flowers from Mom. But I'm going back and forth with whether I agree with you removing those restrictions on these high volume months.
So should I just time it?
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, because I don't hear an objection from Shea West to those restrictions.
Well, actually, that came to us, maybe you missed that part of my presentation. So that was the one objectionable part of their meeting with us today, which is why they provided us with the 60-page documents of sales data, which it was, while I'm good, I can't go through 60 pages at 2 o'clock to 5, so.
I do feel like it's redundant though, because if we've got 50 spaces, we've got 50 spaces in it.
You've got 50, we do not have 50 parking spaces.
No, we have 33 parking spaces, which the study shows we need 31.
Correct, yeah.
So it doesn't matter if it's May or July, right? I just feel like we should be telling her she can't do a certain thing in May and June.
Just don't do it on
So,
Mother's Day.
just to bring up a little bit, and not that I want to muddy the waters more, but the thought of, is it event certain? Is it, instead of 2 months, is it limited to a week? Is it only when there's high traffic events demonstrated by the sales volumes that was provided to us? Yes, it's tricky.
Yes,
but-
and I think it's a little beyond the objective of what a PUD is. I mean, we can't control every activity on a property of a business. That's not the purpose of the PUD, and then that's why I'm a little bit hesitant to add further controlling language,
Right.
which might have secondary consequences or unintended consequences, as you said before.
Right.
So that's why I'm saying, just leave that out, because it's not making it any better anyway.
So here's where we're at, though. You have the ordinance in front of you, Exhibit A. I'm hoping, or I need to bring it up, if you are going through and line item amending that as part of your recommendation, that needs to be stated as such. So you have the purview to do that as commission. It's a lot, but you are certainly welcome
You
to
got
do
3
that.
pages, right? May I
Yep.
have the mouse? There's one thing I want to pull out, would be all of A? I don't understand. This Exhibit A?
No,
He's looking at this.
Oh.
2A, I'm sorry.
Oh, I see. Yes, strike 2A.
But, I mean, how do we police off-site parking?
We don't.
So we do have code enforcement officers. That is how we have been alerted to other situations in the neighborhood. So that is the basis of our ordinance, is to enforce those things which are allowed and to bring violation notices to things that are not allowed. So, does that answer your question? So, was there anything else in Exhibit A that you wanted to take a look through?
You indicated that the 3 vendors was somewhat arbitrary. I'm just going to ask the owner, is that a reasonable number?
We intend to pull permits every time we're having a market of any kind.
Got it. All right, so that would cover it?
Yes.
So
So anything over 3 vendors would need a special events permit is how that's
Perfect.
being
So, under 3 PUD, over 3 activity permit.
correct.
Okay, special event permit, I'm sorry if I'm not using the right words.
Yep.
Okay. This is just a study, which explains the sizes, which is good. And the durable parking, allowing that to stay gravel until they get everything else figured out and do the expansion. Right? I would just be striking that one sub-bullet A under item 2.
Okay, moving on.
The second greenhouse is gonna have to have a building permit anyway. It's not
Correct.
outside of that, so that, those requirements are still there, just like the first greenhouse was. So, is there any other discussion? Because I want to make a motion. Aaron,
Want to
did
wait? I think we have some more input.
No, I think you guys kind of covered it here, but I would just, I know there's been a lot of discussion on the access here tonight, but I do want to make you aware that parking is an issue. The city has received many complaints about parking during those peak times. And so, staff's perspective on this, right now, we kind of have somewhat of a known parking issue with the greenhouse, not all the time, but during, a handful of weekends throughout the year. And so the concern that staff has is by adding an additional use to this site on top of what's already there, we're only going to be potentially exacerbating that situation. I know Jody's mentioned that she has no intention to, book events during those peak hours. However, by taking these restrictions out, the city would have no leverage to go in and prevent her from having 2 events at the same time. And so I just want to make that clear, is all.
Can I also make a,
Sorry.
sorry to jump in front
No,
of you.
go ahead.
Can I also make another point? We are making some changes as far as, the parking spots that are there can't be blocked, right? Which was one of the things that seemed to be happening during some of these events. And secondly, the reason people are going over on Fourth is the access, not just the parking spaces. And the moving of the bulk material storage makes it a huge difference as far as how many usable spaces are there. So I think we are already addressing a portion of the concern. Is it going to fix it? Probably not. But access is still always the fundamental reason for the problem.
Yeah, so I think staff may have a slightly different perspective in terms of access is certainly an issue, but when people are parking off-site, it's usually because they're not able to find a parking spot on site.
But then don't we as a city have the ability to get parking tickets and?
Correct, if they're parked illegally, yes.
So, I mean, it's not like we don't have recourse,
Yep.
we just have to enforce it,
Yep.
right? So.
Yep, so, just,
Where's the other access onto Fourth Street that is not coming from 40th? Didn't someone say there was another access?
it's off of Ninth Street.
Is that an opportunity?
For what?
Well, I always got the impression these homes were landlocked. And there is another, ability, you know, you're saying no.
Can I answer?
Yeah.
Yep.
The development is like a U.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, the development, Nelson Acres is a U. And so you have an access point on Fourth Street and an access point on 9th Street.
Okay.
So 5 blocks down, which the residents or the people that are going to her business, they don't even want to go to about 7th, which is where the blue park is, if people call it that, the blue park to turn on. They don't even want to do that. So so I just want to make sure there is only one access onto 4th Street.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah.
You know, if I knew about that, I would use that.
All right.
From 40, correct.
Yes, there's 2 accesses to it from that.
Well, the 2 accesses. If I was going east-west, she said off 40th.
So, I'm going to make a motion. I move to approve the amendment to the PUD as published with the Appendix A, changing or striking out of permitted use the sub-bullet A under item number 2. Any further discussion prior to vote?
Maybe just a question from staff and clarification. Included in the staff recommendation is a condition of approval that she remove, or that the site plan be updated to remove the reference to the removal of the median. Is that part of the motion as well?
I missed that part. Can you clarify that some more? The removal of the median from the drawing that you referenced earlier, is that what you were talking about?
This one. PUD site plans are updated to remove the reference to modification.
For clarification, that's not included in what we are approving?
The
Is that-
drawings show the median being removed. Staff is saying the median will not be removed.
We need the, we need,
Might not be removed.
Not as part of this, it won't be.
we need this language removed from, do we need a site plan resubmitted that?
Include, okay, then let me restate. Move to approve the PUD agreement as received, and to include Amendment A, except strike out item 2, sub-bullet A, and modify the drawing, what page is that on? To exclude the wording of the median being removed. Does that cover what you are concerned?
Yes, it does.
Okay, because we don't want to create another conundrum.
No.
Which I think we did the first time when we had the modified entrance appearing on some documentation. So we'll strike that.
You suggested a friendly amendment for the bus, but that is not something we were asking for. It was in our language, but we were, who said something about them?
No. We are not, we are accepting the temporary acceptance, the allowance of the temporary signage as part of this amendment, right? That language is already included, which is, also has the red truck.
The red truck's not being removed, just the signage in the back.
But the red truck will be modified so that it's compliant with the code.
Yep.
At some point. To be an adjacency to a permanent sign is how I understood it.
Yep.
Clear as mud, did we get that?
Clear as mud.
So now we vote.
You have seconded. All right, are you guys clear on what I was talking about? Because I am not, but okay.
Sort of.
Yeah.
All right, minus that one line and the change on the drawings to exclude the language that references a median change. All right, anybody want to talk about this some more?
I don't want to talk about this, but after this, the vote, may I just make a couple comments?
After?
After.
You may talk to your heart's content.
No, you can't, I gotta go.
I won't talk to my heart's content. I
Okay.
just want, I want to,
Any further
Make some
discussion
clarity
prior
on
to
a couple
vote
things.
on this topic?
No.
All those in favor of approval of the motion as described, say aye.
aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Motion passed. You gotta be a stickler.
No?
All right, so this goes to the city commission now?
The request has been that we will be at the city commission meeting on September 3rd, the day after Labor Day, not the Monday because there's a holiday.
I might even go to that one.
Thank you.
No offense, but I hope I don't see people. I hope
And I hope we get this traffic
if I see
issue
you, it's
resolved.
buying Mother's Day flowers.
Now, if I may, a couple comments.
Can we hold that to the end? And
It's
We're at the end.
somewhat related to the documentation that's been provided here. This matter, but it wasn't related to the vote.
okay,
So it's on the topic, but it's not the topic.
please.
Within the documentation, we received, we got a note from the applicant. A couple of things I want to, I guess I want to say take exception to. I was on the commission when we voted and approved this, and it's great business. I want to see it be successful and continue to prosper, and we're trying to do whatever we can to make it work. A couple things that were noted in here, she says, staff directed her to be vague about the use on it so that you could, to give more flexibility in operations. Well, it's contrary to what a PUD does. A PUD puts restrictions on so you kind of know what's going on. And I've got the original staff report from back then, and they did list a number of uses of the property within the greenhouse and landscaping description. Event centers were not on that list. That's fine. It's morphed, it's become something else. I think that's fine. But my point is A, none of our stuff should be vague. And if that was the message the staff was getting across, that's not good for any commission, nor is it good for any applicant. I think, unfortunately, rules are rules, and I think we've been pointing out, we don't want to get down the road in which we are, and all of a sudden trying to figure out what's what. It should not be vague if it was vague. The other thing I do take exception to, and I've been on this board after 12 years on the commission, the statement that this is not presented by choice, but rather the force from the City Planning Commission, and it didn't come from us, who have slowly turned to working against our operation over the past several years. That's news to me. I think a few months ago we tried to look for solutions to access, which we all agree is a problem, and I do take offense that somehow we're being pegged as working against you. It's right here.
We're not trying to work against anybody. The
No, we're not. We're
residents
trying to
or the
work for
business.
you. We're a valuable business. We want to keep you in town, and people love the operation.
And we want the residents.
But we
to be
need a
happy as
balance.
well.
The last point I will make is I don't understand, I don't speak for the commission anymore. I'm just on this committee as an advisor. But why there's city property there that could be utilized in some form, whether it's a temporary parking lot for an event that can just be used for that day only. Sure, it's not gonna have asphalt and curb and lights and everything else. But why the city won't look at ways of using that? They're never gonna use that property that's just to the north of that holding pond and south of their recycling center. There's a high line in there that restricts any building at all. You can have parking lots under there. But why that isn't a possible solution to help to get that parking off Fourth is having a temporary parking lot there. Again, that's for the city commission to decide. That's not our choice, but.
That announcement you're running for the city commission?
No, I had 12 years of fun, so I like this commission. But that's just the comments I made. It wasn't related to the actual motion, so. And again, we're trying to find solutions, and we want them to stay in town, so.
Thank you.
Can I please speak to that, just very briefly? I know that I'm long-winded, but I want to address that comment. Is that okay?
Sure.
I apologize directly if I came across as offensive in any way. We've been on the defensive for a very long time trying to get this resolution. Those words that you talked about where I was directed to be vague came back from Lisa. I don't mean to bring you into this personally, but I was working very closely with Lisa and Tim, and I gave them a list of everything that I was hoping for the property to be, and was directed back by Tim, I believe, I'll have to look back at my email communication, that they preferred garden center as a description instead of my list so that it was less restrictive on me and that vague would be a little better. That was what I was referring to. And if I said commission in any way, I'm more referring to the experience for us overall is not just directly the commission, but the changeover in the planning department has been to our detriment because a lot of history was lost there. And I can't recall someone like Tim back from the stand because he has since moved out of the area. I'm not able to access him and say directly, was this or was this not communicated, because I'm dealing with people that are newer to the situation who are trying to do their best with what they were left. And we have the history there, and we have emails of things we've tried to accomplish that have been allowed for a very long time, and now we're being told by the new department, not necessarily the commission, but the new department, that they're in violation when previously we were told with open arms to go forward. So that's the experience that I was trying to describe. They're not directly saying that the commission has turned against us. It's the turnover that is working against us in the department staff.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, moving on. Non-agenda items? Anything else to add?
Move to adjourn
No? Well, from the regular agenda.
from both. That's what I just moved.
Okay, wait. So, it's been moved to adjourn from the regular agenda, and all those in favor say aye? Aye. All right. Any opposed? Very good. Discussion agenda.
Move to adjourn.
Can we move this conversation to,
It's ultimately up to you guys, but we do have some time-sensitive items on here that, we do want to get started on
I
in the near future.
wouldn't mind continuing unless there are,
I gotta go.
can we move it? Everybody read the stuff, and then we can make it a votable or actionable item for next month?
If you're comfortable with that, I'm happy to give a little 5-minute spiel if you'd like, or otherwise, if you don't mind us moving forward.
Well, the commissioners who need to leave, please do. Yes, let's have a 5-minute on that. And if you two can read through that material prior to next month. Fair enough? Okay.
All right, thank you, and I'll
What are we talking about now?
try to be brief.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is, we're looking at changes to some ordinances regarding landscaping and screening for outdoor storage. So some relevance.
So just an update on this one. This item was presented and discussed at the last Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Since then, we have made some additional slight modifications and updates, and so what's included in your packet here is an updated version. We anticipate it's pretty close to the final thing, and so based on the direction a minute ago here, we'll get this packaged up for a public hearing at next month's meeting. We don't anticipate.
We will vote on it next month then?
Correct, yep.
Okay. So go through the highlights of what's changing here?
Yep, so there was discussion on some of the tree preservation stuff, so we tried to address some of that in there. We've also included some screening elements from the fencing ordinance, as well as some screening elements from the landscaping ordinance and some of the overlays, just trying to cut that down. A lot of it was duplicative in terms of, and sometimes conflicting in terms of when and where screening is required. So that's the overall addition to what was presented last month. So unless there's any questions on that, that's all I've got on that one.
And are the edits further down? I apologize, I was not able to read through the whole package.
It's lengthy, but yeah, there's a little table of contents.
This will, when I read through this will have the actual edits as far as what it was and what it's changing to?
Correct, yep, everything should be in there.
Yeah, can everybody make sure you just at least give it a, once again, my tardiness or my absence is causing me trouble. Thanks for having my back, bud. Okay. And after we vote, it still goes to city commission as far as for final approval.
Correct,
like
stepwise.
any other
it'll
amendment.
Come back to the Planning and Zoning Commission next month for public hearing and recommendation. From there, it will move on to the city commission for a first reading and public hearing, and then a second reading.
And
and final approval.
this is one that requires 2 readings.
Yep, correct.
Okay.
So, any questions on that?
Nope.
Okay, in that case, I'll jump down to the second discussion item, which is we were planning on presenting some updates to the Planning and Zoning Commission on various projects that have recently been completed or are ongoing. And this is kind of in lead up to kind of a next phase of larger projects that we're looking to undertake, namely the Growth Area Master Plan. I know we've talked about this, the Planning and Zoning Commission has talked about this. A few months back, you saw an earlier version of a project summary that's included in your meeting packet here. And so I would just direct your attention to that project summary that's attached to the memorandum in your packet for an overview of what we're looking to accomplish with this master planning effort. It is identified and included in the 2025 CIP, and so looking at that 2025 timeframe to contract with a multidisciplinary consulting firm to lead this effort. And there's a number of different focus areas and things that I can certainly save till next month. But the purpose of bringing it to your attention here tonight was to just kind of remind you that this is something that was identified in the planning needs assessment as a midterm project. And now that we've kind of made some traction and completed and have those short-term projects underway, this is really the first midterm project that we're looking to get underway here, and it's a big one. And so we want to make sure we allow plenty of time for discussion and comment from not only the Planning and Zoning Commission, but also the City Commission, Economic Development Committee, and other partner entities as well. So,
Aaron, do you expect to have a steering committee and selection committee and some role for a portion of this group as part of?
Yep, I do. We haven't worked out those details yet, but we had a similar process for like the downtown master plan. I anticipate something along those lines where we'll be have some representation from a number of different boards and committees and other partner entities. So, moving forward though, we'd probably be looking to move forward with a request for action from this commission as soon as next month, but it could potentially be October. Haven't quite nailed down the exact timeline yet. So just to mainly just make you aware, bring it to your attention, and then if you have questions or comments, feel free to contact me directly. I'm happy to talk through with any of the details with any of you, or shoot over any comments or questions to any of our staff here as well. So I can leave it there unless you want me to dig deeper. But
It's good. I'm happy to see this moving forward.
As am I. Thank you.
Can I adjourn from the discussion meeting now?
You can move to adjourn.
I would move to adjourn from the discussion agenda now.
Second? Moved and seconded to adjourn? All those in favor say aye. All right. Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much. Excellent job. Sorry if I'm disagreeing on certain points. And you also, Aaron, I'm just kind of, we're trying to